Hi, it's Tegan, and welcome to my very late reading rush wrap-up video. The reading rush has been over for like a week and a half, 2 weeks now, and I'm only just now getting around to filming my wrap-up video. There's lots of reasons as to why this has occurred, mainly because I've had family visiting from America for the last week or so. So we've had 14 people in our house for the last week, so there has definitely been absolutely no time for me to film, but I'm finally sitting down and filming it today. I was just gonna, leave this little puppy sitting in the background and not mention it at all, but you can just like see him over my shoulder, so yeah, he's there. He may move at some point, but he's there for now. I'm going to jump straight into all 7 of the books that I managed to finish throughout the reading rush. If you guys followed along with my reading rush vlogs, you would have seen that I did finish all 7 books that I had on my TBR, which was extremely exciting for me. I had a lot of larger books on my TBR this time around, and literally I did not have a day off throughout the entire week that this readathon was on, so I was not sure, but somehow I managed to do it. So I'm gonna go through and I will tell you guys what challenge they correspond with and all of that sort of fun stuff. The very first book that I managed to finish throughout the reading rush was Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Paterson, and this was my pick for read and watch a book to movie adaptation. I absolutely adored this movie growing up. It was one of my favorite movies. I watched it a billion times, and I had never read the book. And I was looking at my bookshelves and I was like, this would be perfect, because I literally had not watched this movie for probably like 8 to 10 years. Like, it had been a very long time since I had watched this movie, and so getting the chance to do that throughout that week was really fun for me. And the sad part in this book and movie hit me just as hard as it did when I was like 9. I cried. If you watched my vlogs for this book and movie, you would have seen I was in tears. I was not okay. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars, and that just came down to the fact that this book was written a very long time ago, and I think having Bridge to Terabithia be one of my favorite movies, the movie focuses a lot more on the fantastical elements and the imagination elements of these 2 kids in the forest in Terabithia, and you really get to see the visual of that, whereas this, it's a lot more serious and it doesn't focus as much on that, which I didn't enjoy as much as the movie. And that's why I kind of feel like this book and movie kind of have to be looked at separately, because the movie is set in a different time period as the book, and there's a lot of differences in that sense. So I feel like they kind of have to be looked at as separate entities, but I did enjoy this book. I got through it really fast, and I am really glad that I decided to give this book a chance. The second book that I managed to finish throughout the week of the reading rush was Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and this was my book for read a book with a non-human main character, and this is a book that I have been meaning to read for years and years, but I never ended up getting around to it, so I'm really glad that I was able to read it throughout that week. And this book is a Cinderella retelling. It follows a cyborg, which is why it was perfect for this challenge, and I really enjoyed this. This was my, sorry, I'm just looking at my Goodreads. This was my only book that I gave 5 stars to throughout the week. I adored this book with my whole heart. I flew through it. I loved the characters. I loved Cinder, and I just felt like it was an incredible retelling of Cinderella. I need to pick up the second book because I need to know what happens next, because I can't stop thinking about this book. Like, I read it 2 and a bit weeks ago. Like, it's been a long time since I read this book, and I have not stopped thinking about it since, because it just pulled me in so much, and it is so good. The third book that I read throughout the reading rush was Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow by Siobhan Curraham, and this was my pick for read a book with 5 or more words in the title. And I will be honest, this was my least favorite book that I read throughout the week. I ended up giving this book a 2.5 stars out of 5 stars. I was not a huge fan of the writing in this book, and a lot of the choices that the characters made really annoyed me. The main character, there's 2 main characters in this book, Stevie and Hafiz, and it's told through their different perspectives. Basically, Stevie is really passionate about music. She loves playing the guitar, and that's what she's always gone to, but her dad passed away years and years ago, and that sent her mom into a really bad depression, and her mom just does not get out of bed. She does not support Stevie, and it's just like this spiral of depression in the family. And Hafiz has come from Syria. He has had a long journey getting to Europe from Syria, and he's living with his aunt and uncle, and he absolutely adores football, but he hasn't really been able to play. So it's kind of this story of these 2 people coming from really hard backgrounds coming together and becoming friends. And I picked this book up because I really genuinely thought I would enjoy it, but I could not stand Stevie. She was so whiny and so annoying, and there were so many huge bad things going on in her life, but she just cared about these stupid little things that had no impact on anything, and all she did was whine. I just could not stand her. The overall storyline was really good, but the way that it was written, I did not enjoy very much at all. So that's why this got quite a low rating from me, but I'm glad that I read it and got it out of the way so that, you know, I'm not constantly looking at my shelves being like, oh, I should read that, because that's what was happening before I read this book. He's just hiding behind me now. He's camera shy. He doesn't want to be on the camera. The next book that I read throughout the reading rush was Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and this was my pick for read a author's debut novel, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 to a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a book that I have been meaning to read for so long. I literally own the entire series. Like, every time a book came out, I would go out and buy the next book. So I was like, I'm gonna read it at some point, might as well be able to binge the entire series. And that was my mindset, and then I never picked up the first book. Well, I did, but every time I would only get like 50 to 100 pages into the book, and then I would set it down and read something else. And I don't know why I would do that, because I genuinely did enjoy those first 50 to 100 pages that I read of this book. Every time I did that, I think I did that like twice, but I finally pushed through. I read past that 50-page mark, and I really enjoyed this. This book was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I thought it was gonna be. I kind of just thought it was gonna focus on the fact that Selena is a assassin and this like competition thing that she's in. I thought that's all that I was gonna focus on, but there was like magical elements, there was all of these sorts of new like Celtic stuff, I don't even know, thrown into it, and I really enjoyed that. It gave it this like extra edge that I didn't see coming, and I genuinely really love this, and I cannot wait to move on to the next book. I have not yet, but I will soon. And yeah, I hate myself for taking so long to read this book. I loved Selena in this book. I loved a lot of the characters. I absolutely adored this storyline. I loved all of the challenges throughout it. I kind of wish that they had focused a little bit more on the challenges. Like near the end of the book, some of those like assassin challenges got sort of like thrown out the window, and I really loved reading about those, so I kind of wish that we had gotten to see more of that. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this, and I cannot wait to carry on with the series. If you have not read this, I would highly recommend it. Although I don't think anybody else has not read this book. I feel like I'm the last person on the internet that has not read this series. But if you were like me and you hadn't read this very hyped up book, definitely do. The fifth book that I read during the reading rush was Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and this was my book for Read a Book with Purple on the cover, and I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved this. Once again, I adored the movie when I was younger. It was one of my favorite movies. It terrified me, but I've always loved scary movies, and so this was sort of like the kids version of a scary movie, and I absolutely adored that. But for some reason I never read the book. This book, it kept you on the edge of your seat despite being a children's book. It really pulled me in, and it's a little bit different from the movie. There's some characters that are in the movie that aren't in this book, which I found really surprising. But overall, it was actually pretty similar to the movie in the way that it was told and the way that the events happened and such. I felt like this had the same amount of suspense as the movie. My copy has some like little, let's see if I can find one. It has some little illustrations in it as well, which genuinely would have terrified me as a child, because like, look at that. That is like a terrifying image for a child to be looking at. I don't know, but I really enjoyed this, and I'm really glad that this readathon gave me the chance to read this finally, because I feel like it's one that I genuinely should have read a very long time ago. The sixth book that I read during the reading rush was The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is my book for read a book sitting in the same spot the whole time that you're reading the book, and my spot was my bed. Surprise, surprise, that's where I do most of my reading. And since this is a fairly short book, that was no issue at all. Once again, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really genuinely did enjoy this book. If you have watched any of my videos before, or if you know me at all, you would know that dystopian is one of my favorite genres of all time. I absolutely love all stories within the dystopian genre. I don't know what it is about it, but I just absolutely adore it. And this was one that I had not read yet. And I remember when the movie came out a few years ago, I did not go and see it because I hadn't read the book yet. And I am very particular with definitely trying to read the book before I watch the movie if I know that there's a book before I go and see the movie. And so since I hadn't read the book yet, I had never watched the movie, and so I'm really excited that I get to go and see the movie now. I felt like despite this being a really short book, the author was able to get a lot into the story, and there was quite a bit of character development within it as well, which is really surprising for it being such a short amount of words. I loved the concept of them living in this world with absolutely no pain, no like memories of anything bad pretty much happening at all. And then there's just this one person that holds all of those memories and has to have all of that pain, and I really enjoyed that. And I love the fact that it went to Jonas, because I feel like he was this person who was really into order, and he really was like set on like just doing something for the rest of his life that like had rules and that he could follow. And then he gets set with this receiver of memory job, and he's like, what the hell do I do with this? And I really loved learning and reading about Jonas's discoveries as a person, and I really want to pick up the next book because I really did enjoy this. And finally, the very last book that I finished during the reading rush 2019 was Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan, which is the 4th book in the Percy Jackson series. I loved this book so much. This was my book for the challenge Read a Book That You Meant to Read last year. If you guys watched my booktubeathon, readathon videos last year, you would have seen that I read the 3rd book in this series last year, and I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to read the 4th book. I'm gonna read it so soon because the 3rd book was so good, and then I never ended up reading it. And then a year later, I finally read it. I don't know what's wrong with me because I genuinely love this series so much, but I just never picked up the next book in the series. And I am so glad that I did this time around because it was so good. This was probably one of my favorite installments in this series so far. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I loved them down in the labyrinth. I loved all of the new additions of characters. Obviously, I can't really go much into what this book was about because it is a 4th book in a series, but they're down in a labyrinth. It's all of this like maze. There's all of these different challenges. There's all of these new characters thrown in. It's so good. It's so intense. I need to read the next book like right now because what even was the ending of this book? I'm so glad that I read this. This was the audiobook that I listened to throughout the week, and I've been really enjoying. I love the narrator of these audiobooks, so I've been really enjoying listening to these audiobooks, and I've already got the 5th book's audiobook downloaded, so I just need to listen to it, which I will hopefully be doing soon. It's taken me like 3 years to read this series. I will be done with it eventually, I promise. I finished this book with 9 minutes to spare in the readathon. It was 11:51. I finished this book. I don't know how I did it, but I read so much of this book in the last few hours. I had 9 minutes to spare. It was 11:51. I was like, I have 1 book left. I'm not giving up. Like, I have to finish this. I have to get to my 7 books read. But I genuinely did not think I was going to do it. And then I finally got to the end of this book with 9 minutes to spare, and I was so proud of myself. But yeah, I'm really glad that this ended up being the last book that I finished during this readathon because I absolutely adored it. So these were all 7 of the books that I managed to finish throughout the Reading Rush 2019. I'm so proud of myself that I was able to get through all 7 of the books on my TBR because I genuinely did not think I would. I had the absolute best time reading throughout that week. It really, like, because I was in a bit of a reading slump. I had fallen behind on my reading goal for the year, and this put me back on top, which I'm very thankful for. And yeah, I absolutely cannot wait for next year because this readathon is one of my favorite parts of the year. Just really gets me out there with reading, and I always vlog the entire thing, and it's just a really fun week of reading and booktube and challenges, and I really enjoy it. I hope that your guys' reading rushes went well as well. I would absolutely love to know what your favorite book that you read throughout the readathon was. Mine was definitely Cinder, but I would absolutely love to know what yours was. And yeah, I'm sorry that this video was so late. I just did not have a chance to film it before this point, but I hope that you guys enjoyed this video nonetheless, and I am so excited for next year. And yeah, that's gonna be about it for this video today. If you guys enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button down below. I would absolutely very much so appreciate that. And you can also hit that like button down below if you enjoyed this. I would also appreciate that. And yeah, that's gonna be about it for this video today. I'm Tegan, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!